What kind of procedure or protocol do you have specifically, if any, to manage medical records that come with your cases?
Yeah. I mean, for my practice, we really do it on a case by case basis. I
Mhm.
will get in there and look at the medical records myself. I mean, sometimes I'd rather look at them myself because I feel like, exactly like I know what I'm looking for. But let's face it, we're litigators, we're busy, we don't always have time for that. And you're really better off if you employ someone. Now, I've had paralegals who we train what we're looking for and have them do it. I don't have someone who's specially trained as a nurse to do that. The firms that I do, I think it's a wonderful thing. But that's where you go to outside help in terms of employing a nurse consultant. But another way is go to an expert. I mean, if you've got a case where liability is going to hinge on the cause of death, and you're either going to have it or you're not, then it makes sense to pay an expert early on to look at this before you get too deep in the case. Because if you can't prove that their other party's actions caused your client's death and there was a cause that isn't part of the lawsuit, well, it's you'd rather know that earlier on in the case than later.
Definitely, experts definitely have their place. That's for sure. And when those excuse me, when you know deal with some of those records yourselves, because you know what you're looking for, what do you find, if anything, to be the most complicated, frustrating, or puzzling about regarding those medical records?
Well, I think one thing is your client comes to you and they come to you with a number of symptoms sometimes that
Mm.
happen, especially when you've got a situation, for instance, like a traumatic brain injury, where maybe they haven't lost consciousness at the event, and it's not well documented. And they say,
Mhm.
"Well, I've been suffering this and this," and then you get the medical records from an emergency room, and or for instance, and the symptoms that your client is sure that they told the nurse or the doctor are not reflected in the medical records,
Mm.
right? So that can be a little bit frustrating, and then you really have to look at, well, what was the situation there? How there can be reasons for that, and another time that happens is when a doctor is in a particular specialty and the doctor's just looking at the one specialty, but they have other issues going on, and the doctor just doesn't note those things. So I think that is a big thing. The other thing is, oftentimes when people go to the doctor, what are they doing? They're filling out forms where they're circling this and that, right? So, if you've been hurt and you think that you may have a case, be very careful about filling out those forms. You want to fill them out accurately. You want to be truthful rather. And I've had clients who have had two different cases going on, and
Mm.
they're just focusing on this doctor with this one case and this doctor with the other case, but they're leaving out the fact that they have a different case. Don't do that if you're a patient. Be honest. I mean, you can have more than one thing going on and it's okay. But as lawyers, we have to know about that in order to explain it. The worst thing that could happen is if a client's credibility is impacted by them not being completely candid with the doctor or telling something to the doctor that wasn't true, and then that comes back to hurt them. So you have to look at it as is it your client or the doctor? And sometimes you're not entirely sure.